City, only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Wednesday night, which means it's Geordie's here, Geordie's there, and at the moment we're joined by George, Mitch, Alwaleed, Stu and Kevin as we look back at the last 7 days at Newcastle United. And a nice little email to the start tonight from Newcastle United, who, as we've mentioned on this show before, are getting a lot of things right. With regards to communicating with supporters. And not everything it has to be said, but some things. We would like to express our gratitude to our supporters, players and staff for an incredible journey through to the Carabao Cup final. For our fans, your support for Eddie Howe and the players has been magnificent, not just at the weekend, but throughout each round of the competition and in the build-up to the final. Though the result did not go as we had all hoped for on Sunday, we are so proud of how you represented Newcastle United on such an important occasion in the club's history. To see London taken over by so many of our fans was very special. We were thrilled to see our fans in great spirits and representing the club and city impeccably. And the scenes at a packed Trafalgar Square will live long in the memory, and we would like to pay a special tribute to those who helped to clean up afterwards. This simple, selfless gesture is just one example of what makes our supporters the best in the world. The scenes around Wembley and inside the stadium on Sunday were beyond inspiring. The passionate support you gave the club throughout the day and the sea of black and white you created were remarkable. We could not have asked for more or any more from you. We also know that many of you could not be there on the day. We have seen so many messages, photos and videos of people coming together to support the team around the world, and they have been just as uplifting. Wherever you watched the match, know that we truly appreciate your support. On the pitch, the team gave everything to achieve the victory we all craved. With the support of Eddie and the backroom team, they showed tenacity, bravery, and absolute commitment to the cause right until the end. While the result didn't go our way, the way that everyone stuck together remains a source of immense pride. And we will always remember the incredible flag waving of all our fans until the final moments on the pitch. That connection and sense of family is part of our identity, and we will need to call on it again as we go together into a crucial part of the season ahead. While our focus shifts back to the Premier League, our ambitions are strengthened by this experience, and it will only make us more determined as we move forward. Once again, thank you sincerely. We are united. George, I tell you what, that was pretty good, mate. And again, PR, it's very important. Communication is very important. We've all banged on about it for years and years. The club got it right again with that. I thought that was beautifully written.
Well, it's better than pretty good. It's fantastic. I mean, you can only applaud it and say thank you to them for being so careful in choosing their words and all the rest of it, because it does say a lot for how they feel about our club, not just their club, our club. And it does feel like our club again, thanks to them. Could easily have been their club, my club. They don't make those sort of silly mistakes, which is fantastic. It is our club. It feels like our club. And for somebody like me who's been supporting it, thick end of 76 years, it's a refreshing change to be regarded as part of the family instead of being taken for granted over years and years and years, and for being used like a tow rag for the last 14 years by a name I don't even want to mention now. I'm so sick of them. It is a refreshing change, and it just speaks well for the future. What we've got to get right, and is for the future is what happens on the pitch. And I think what Sunday did do, it showed where we're lacking, and hopefully, and I'm sure they will have taken note that it's given them some pointers for the summer and future windows where we need to strengthen. But that statement is a great fillip for the fans to pick us up, to know that the ownership, I think, so highly and so committed. Can I also add my congratulations to our fans? The people who decided to tidy up Trafalgar Square, that was a master stroke, I've got to say. The only parallel I can give is when the Japanese were cleaning up the stadiums in the World Cup, is the closest it can get to a similar thing. But well done, whoever organised that. That really was a master stroke. So, yes, it's a nice statement. And as I say, it's all inclusive, includes everybody, makes you feel part of the club. And that's refreshing, to say the least.
Okay, Mitch, I got your dad's views on the game on the fans forum. So over to you now, mate. Your views on the match and the weekend as a whole.
They're wonderfully nice words, but wonderfully nice words don't put a trophy in the cabinet, and they don't turn Newcastle United into a winning team. I'm grateful to that. I'm grateful for what they've said, and I'm grateful for the recognition to the fans, and having spent a weekend in London with good friends and new tales to tell and new jokes to talk about and things we'll laugh about for years to come. But this has always been my experience in Newcastle United. A fantastic weekend spoiled by 90 minutes of football. And without wishing to sound like a total misery guts, that has to change sometime. However, I also recognise the only way that's going to change is by doing it more often. And I think that's the drive now that we're going to see. That's the difference between what we had in the 90s. And this is where the press use expectations against you. We were in a position in the 90s where we were regularly playing Champions League football. We were regularly getting to cup finals. And then it all dropped off and dropped away during the Ashley era. And yet we were then told we had unrealistic expectations when all we wanted was that back. And so we're in a position where I think we're being exposed for where we're lacking. I think the performance at the weekend wasn't our best. I think there could have been a lot more to come. And I think on our best, I think we should have beat Man United. I think we've missed a golden opportunity, really. And yet I have to still temper that with reminding myself how far ahead of schedule in the original plan we are and how far we've come in one calendar year. I'm struggling to square that circle at the minute. I don't want to sound like an ungrateful Wazik. I don't want to sound like somebody who seems to be having a go at the rest of the fan base and using words like winners mentality as a stick to beat people with. That's unfair too. I think having seen our Justin, some of the young'uns down there, and interacted with both the junior members of the Penman family, with Joss and his mates, and seeing what a fantastic time they've all had, I feel like the baton has been well and truly passed, and I'm envious for what's to come from them. They're going to see, I think, a hell of a lot more than we've managed to in our time. But I still can't get over the fact 3 days on, I'm absolutely totally gutted. How much has that got to do with my personal experience, the hassle I had getting out of the country to come and watch it, and travelling back, and the shite I've come back to work-wise, yeah, as well, which always seems to be the way if I go away for 48 hours. There always seems to be a load of stuff to pile up that Muggins has to sort out. I wish I'd come back with a cup to shout about. As for the day, the experience on the day, I can't fault a lot of things. I mean, I know some of the lads had trouble getting the tickets. The tickets had gone AWOL in the post, and the ticket office down at Wembley sorted them out without even a hesitation. Brilliant, superb, so many things done well. Darren Curry and his organisational stuff at the Green Man, but then the box park stuff as well, all went down so well. And I think as a fan base, we've been welcomed and treated, and I think we've given back. The Trafalgar Square clean-up is, as my dad said, a master stroke. If you look at the response from the Met Police, they cannot stop saying what a delight it was to have her down there. But I mean, we were talking to a couple of van loads of them whilst having breakfast on Sunday morning. They were off to do Spurs Chelsea, and then they were back up for the Wembley game, and they were saying, well, we're not going to be back up, but we're not going to have that much hassle because it's you lot. We never have that much hassle with you lot. You know, you're always a delight to have in the capital, and that says a lot. I bet there's not many fan bases get that. But it's time as a club became more than a fan base, and it's time as a club that we became unhappy to be the bridesmaid, and it's time to be the bride. And that's my feeling at the minute. I think I'll get over myself eventually. I think once I've had a couple of beers at the weekend with Stu and got a few more laughs from the weekend out my system, I suspect I'll probably calm myself down. I'm glad I didn't have a show to do yesterday or the day before, because I think I would have come across as quite ingrateful, actually. And I think I'm trying to put things into perspective a little bit. But very, very frustrated because it just feels like a golden opportunity spur. That's not the best Man United team. It sticks in me craw to have conceded to the most overweight Brazilian midfielder I've ever seen in my life. And the praise he gets when we've got a far better Brazilian midfielder, two far better Brazilian midfielders in our squad. And yet on the day, there weren't enough to see we're over the line.
Okay, Al-Walid, are you depressed?
Well, I'm happy and depressed. It's very weird. I'm happy that we reach the final. We celebrate the final. I think I'm sure no team celebrate going to final to Wembley. The whole world was talking about Newcastle and the Trafalgar takeover, Trafalgar Square. But I believe this was a pressure, because I think pressure on the players. The players want to do. I mean, they forced themselves. They want to do something for the fans in Newcastle. I can read that in their stories on Instagram. Fabian Schär, Loris, all the players. They want the fans to make happy. So I think the Trafalgar and this maybe increase the pressure somehow. But I believe this time we celebrate the final, and next time we celebrate the trophy. I think this is just we all agree, everybody writes the same sentence. This is just the beginning. So we get a lot of advantage. I'm sure now with the great message from the owners, they realize now where is the lake, how we should have in the transfer market to really compete and be better from the opponent. And for the game, anyone can notice the difference in the midfield. The midfield of Manchester was better. Our best player in Bruno Guimaraes, I noticed he's tired. After 20 minutes, I believe he was trying to catch a breath. Because 3 games he didn't play. So I believe next time we will not do this pressure on the team. The team will become will celebrate only trophies. Now we celebrate Wembley, but next time we'll celebrate trophies for sure.
Okay, good evening, Steve.
Good evening. I love this show. There's no perks, no dodgy stuff, no lookalikes. It's brilliant. Favorite show.
Chippers is in the chat though. Hold on a minute. I'm going to find his comment because it was a little bit earlier on. He goes, "I heard Steve Hasty was a celebrity on Wembley Way, signing dog and llama pics. Is this true?"
No. It was cats and hamsters.
Cats and hamsters. I love it. So, Steve, sum up your weekend, mate. Sum up the game from your perspective.
You know what? You go down to Wembley full of expectation, and you come back just like you did in '99, just like you did in '98, just like you did in 2000, just like you did in '76. The perennial losers. That's what we were. You know what? We huffed and puffed, but we didn't produce the goods. Simple as that. Too many players who claim they're in form, and claim they're fit, who obviously aren't fit. I thought that the tactics were wrong at times. I thought that certain players let us down. I thought certain players didn't use their head, didn't use their brain, and what they were doing. And at the end, I thought with 5, 6, 7 minutes to go, that Eddie Howe gave up. with his substitutions when he brought Anderson on and Ritchie. When with 5 minutes to go in a Wembley Cup final, 2-0 down, and all of a sudden the crowd starts to build up because they realise that board's going up, saying that there's going to be 5 minutes left, and you're thinking, you know what, grab a goal here, and we could have a barnstorming finish. We could suddenly find ourselves, as has happened with many clubs in the past, we could suddenly find ourselves 2-2 and going into extra time and being on the front foot, and instead. He went, you know what? Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll give Mitch a run out. That disappointed us, if I'm perfectly honest. I look at the way that ASM in the first 9 minutes had Dalot on his backside because Dalot was booked. And from that moment onwards, he decided not to take him on and not look for a second booking. Barely got past his man. I thought his final ball selection was poor. I thought Almiron was never at the races, and I thought that we need to start. And I'm being hypercritical now. We need to start thinking seriously about our set piece routines. We cannot continue for a full season where we have only one player who can take a corner and one player who can take a free kick. That sums it up for me, Steve. It was a great time in the Green Man and a great time in the pubs afterwards. But if we're going to be professional, I'm going to be serious. Then it's time that as fans we're starting to get serious.
Okay, Kevin, I got your views on the fans forum. Just a question for you on the email from the club and what they had to say. What's your thoughts?
Again, communication is key. And I said on Monday, and I've said it on this show a couple of times, what I've experienced here in Atlanta with Darren Eales, that's what Darren Eales is all about. Getting in front of people, and Steve, you were there, the Green Man or whatever, singing songs, having a pint or whatever, but that's what he does.
Yeah.
And he gets involved, and that's what it makes it feel like the club is one with the fan base. Even though he could be, whatever, say, position in the club, you've got owners above him who are, kind of dictating how things go a little bit, but it's a top-down approach where this is how the club's going to be run, and this is why we brought you in to do this job, is to bring the fan base together. So yeah, it was a wonderful statement. Again, it was needed. I think just to galvanise the fans going in for the rest of the season. And again, it's a Club United, and based on the clean-up of London and stuff like that, it doesn't take much for it to be cleaned up. But fair play to the lads and lasses who've done it. But yeah, just overall proud of them, proud of the ownership, the CEO, everybody connected to the club, what they've done for us as a fan base to, again, like Mitch said earlier, the passing of a baton, if you will. I wish I could have that same thing to my son, but unfortunately I'm on the other side of the pond, so I can't do that exactly, but I can do it from afar. And that's what it's all about, essentially.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Stu, good evening, mate. Your weekend go well.
Well, I have to be careful what I'm saying about my weekend because my mother and auntie is sitting in the same room as us. So you're gonna have to behave. I don't know. It's been conflicting thoughts. They keep flip flopping. One from tremendous pride that we were there, and I think it was the people I was there with, friends, family, etc. But then the result, and there's two words I kept repeating. Not your round, Mitch. It wasn't those the two words. It was lost opportunity, and I genuinely believe it was a lost opportunity. But since the game, there's been too much negativity. But I get it. That comes from the disappointment. But you have to remember, one team went into that game in tip-top form, and another team was struggling to even string passes together. And I think had this final been played in October and November, we were the team that would have won it comfortably. And it just shows that the squad depth isn't there. And I think that was highlighted or exposed brutally on Sunday. The fact that the people that Steve's just mentioned there come off the bench, to comparison who Man United could bring off the bench. And that shows that we still have a long, long way to go. And I think it was a real eye-opener, especially when you hear Amanda's statement as well. It seems to have galvanised them, but give them a wake-up call at the same time that there's more to come. And I remember saying back earlier in the season when we started off doing well, that I still think that we'll finish 5th anyway. But what happens is when you have a group of people, whether it's sales or sports, and this is what they're achieving, and if they start doing better and better consistently, they start overachieving. That becomes the norm. And I think they've just seemed to have, the last couple of games, reverted back to where they were initially. And the crest of the wave they've been riding seems to have just collapsed. So whether it's a confidence thing, I know people can start looking at different players, but I was most disappointed with Miggy. I've been critical of ASM in the past, but what he did do, and I know Steve's just mentioned there, he mixed up what he was doing. He would hit the byline, he would cut inside, he would knock it back. And the time he did hit the byline, that's when he got the early booking, and that should have been pushed on. But with Miggy, his right foot's for standing on, and you can't be a Champions League player as we hope to just have one foot like that in that position. He needs to have to at least be able to use it or mix it up so the defender doesn't know. There was 2 or 3 occasions he went past the lad on the wing and then had to stop and try and cut back and beat him again. And you don't get those chances. The runs are already made. You've just got to get it in the box and see what happens. And it wasn't happening. So we have overachieved. There will be improvements. So you can look at it, and it's like sometimes you're not allowed to be disappointed because people have a go at you and say, remember where we were 14 months ago. Or we're still going to be saying that in 5 years' time. Remember where we were 6 years ago. The owners are telling us that not that they want to win things, that they go to win things. So our level of expectation has increased, and it goes hand in hand with how the team and the results have improved in general over the last 14, 15 months. So we have a right, but again, I'll go back to my initial 2 words, was lost opportunity. I genuinely believe that we had enough to beat them with the right game plan. But we can have as much possession as we want, but you have 2 shots on target, you're not going to win a cup final. And that's what it boils down to try to walk it in. And, get the ball, take a shot, it can go anywhere, but the confidence wasn't there. That was it.
Yeah. I'll tell you something I saw in the team as well after the second goal went in for about 2-3 minutes. We looked sorry for ourselves. And I've not seen an Eddie Howe team look like that ever. In my eyes, I don't think I've seen we look looking. You could see the players looking at each other and looking at the ground and looking for inspiration. And I've not seen that in a team under Eddie Howe for in the entire time, even right at the start when we couldn't buy a point,
Yeah.
And that bothers me. That bothers me going forward for the rest of the season.
They were bereft of confidence, weren't they?
Yeah, what I would also say is how similar was the Man United game to the Liverpool game from the previous week? 2-0 down, very early doors. Okay, there wasn't the sending off, but from that moment onward, despite having all the play, despite the possession, despite the movement, we never ever gave the keeper any trouble. And I know we said after the Liverpool game that that we would learn from it, but I don't think we did. I think you're right. I think the heads, although we didn't physically see the heads go down, there was this sort of it's knocked the wind out of our sails, and I don't know how we're going to get the wind back. And you're right, we haven't seen that from Eddie Howe's team. But I mean, let's face it, we haven't been doing well since Christmas, have we? The performances that we've been putting in, while we haven't been conceding goals, we haven't been scoring goals, and we're not going to win games if we're not going to score goals. And it seems to have suddenly become an issue since the World Cup. It's become an issue since Wilson went and came back and hasn't really produced the goods. Eddie doesn't seem to want to mix it up. He brought Isak on, and we saw someone who was dynamic and running with the ball. But by then, you were running into blind alleys because you weren't getting the support. And the early ball wasn't coming from the wide men. And you're right, with Miggy, he gets to the edge. What he was doing in the earlier part of the season, he was picking up the ball and he was immediately cutting inside on his left. But what he's now doing is he's knocking it down the line. And like you say, it's only a split second while you turn and pull it back onto your other foot. But by then, a well-organised defence has the line in play. And they're ready, and they're facing him again. So he's not getting to the point where he's turning them. He was turning them inside and turning the fullbacks and giving teams that nervousness. But it's not happening now for some reason. And when he does get that, he doesn't release the ball and doesn't put the shot in. And I don't know what's happened since November. It's forgotten about.
Do you know what it's reminiscent of, Steve? It's the year, the 95-96 season. Once in the, I still think the signing of David Batty cost us the league, and it wasn't Aspria. Because when Nash had the ball, when Lee Clark had the ball, he was taking it out, and he was always looking to go forward with it. When Batty got the ball, he would always go sideways or backwards, and it allowed the defenders time to get back. And we got sussed out. We ran out of ideas, and that's what's happening now. You know, they haven't got the nous to start changing, mixing things up. They're just that well drilled. They have to keep doing it's like robotic. And to me, they need to be making not wholesale changes, but especially in the attacking areas, because it looks like the defence don't trust the midfield and the forward line because the press isn't there. And if they're not pressing, they're not getting the ball in their areas.
We also had players in the team at that point who had a little bit of a nasty streak in them. And players who got kicked, the quality players, you look at Ginola and you look at Laurent Robert, but if they got kicked, they would come back and kick back. Right. Now we're not getting that. You know, it's almost, I've been kicked, I've got to lie on the ground and I've got to look for some, like a sympathy vote. Those players, when they got kicked, they kicked back. They were tough enough. And also they had the protection of the likes of the David Batties when you were there, or the Lee Clarks who would support them. And it wasn't there. It hasn't been there since Christmas for some reason. There's you just can't put your finger on an exact. All you can do is you can just look at the sum of the parts and think there's something not quite gelled since Christmas. Well, it's strange that it's not just us, but a lot of teams have suffered since the World Cup, since that break, and haven't really sort of pushed on and retained the type of form that they had prior. But we seem to be the team that struggled the most because of that. And yet and I'll be the first to sit there and say it, at the time of the World Cup, I thought, you know what, we'll come back refreshed and we'll come back and we'll have a second wind, because I thought that was the way that Eddie Howe had them, especially after they went to Saudi and the warm weather training they did, etc. But it didn't. It hasn't turned out that way.
No. Go on, George.
Well, just to repeat what I said on Monday night, Steve, for me, that's the first Newcastle United team that's gone to a cup final without a centre forward. We didn't have a centre forward. That ball in the first 20 minutes, Trippier, Almiron skidded it across the 6-yard box 3 or 4 times, and had we had a centre forward, one of those would have gone in the back of the net. Our centre forward wasn't within 2 yards of the ball. He was on the edge of the penalty area where the ball was skidding across the area where he should have been. And that was the most disappointing thing for me. The other thing I wanted to raise is, now you're talking about other players as well, is somebody today released a report that they've been looking at how often players play and when they should be rested. And it set the maximum time limit that players should be playing as 2,000 minutes. And they should be rested for a long time after that. We've got 9 players who've played more than 2,000 minutes in our squad. And that's not happening elsewhere because they've got deeper squads and they're rotating, able to rotate more often and cleverly. But and I think that's part of what Mickey's problem is. He's knackered. I think he's knackered. But I do the attacking options. If you haven't got a decent centre forward, your attacking options are closed down immediately. I mean, I don't know if any of you watched Leeds last night. Leeds Fulham last night. Mitrovic, he's not my favourite player, but the one thing about him was Leeds couldn't turn their back on him, because every time that ball came across the middle, he was there. When ball came across the middle against Manchester United, we had nobody there. The only person that had a real shot at goal was Jacob Murphy when he came on. Yeah, nobody else had even thought about that. And yet here's a lad comes on as substitute and sometimes gets harangued because not everybody likes him. But at least he had a go. And that's the sad thing for me, is that we didn't have a centre forward.
And we've got to also start to look at our set pieces, like I said earlier. But we've got the big lads that we've got in the team have got to start getting on the end of it. Yeah. I know Van Burn got a header in and it scraped the bar, but we're not getting goals from Shaw. We're not getting goals from Botman. We're not getting goals from Joe Linton with his head. And we keep saying that we've got a very, very big team, tall team, strong team.
We're not using it.
But when it comes to that aspect of the game, and give him his dues, when Lascelles was playing, that was one thing that you got from Lascelles. You got
Quite
the odd
often.
goal,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not saying, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Lascelles should be in the team. What I'm saying is players that are in the team should be looking towards what they can offer in terms of an attacking option, defenders at set pieces. And we should be working on that. And you get the impression that, and sometimes they're all standing outside the box. Sometimes they're just standing and wrestling. It's disappointing. It's frustration. And maybe because it was a cup final and it didn't go our way, maybe there's an element of frustration in my voice and frustration in my words. But as Stewie said, how long, if the owners are putting out the words that we're going to do this and we're going to do that, we're raising our expectations, and I'm raising my expectations, and it's not a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan. I'm looking at a 14-month plan, you know.
It's a good response to Terry Murphy's thing, which I left on the screen there. I detect a sense of impatience with all of you, which is a total backtrack on the feeling when we were first taken over in the 5 or 6 year plan, which in my opinion is we are all well on schedule. I mean, look, 2 ways to look at it, really, Terry, is, you know, we all said last season that we would settle for a run in the cups and not being involved in a relegation battle. Top 8 would be a success if we had a good run in the cups. We've got to a cup final, still 14, 15 games to go in the Premier League season. Let's see where Newcastle finish. But all in all, we're safe at this stage in the season, and we've got to Wembley. For me personally, I've got to be honest, I'm not disappointed. I think we've had a great season. But I get where Steve is coming from, certainly with what he said. And when Amanda Staveley comes out and says, we're going to come back and we're going to win the Carabao Cup, we're going to win the FA Cup, we're going to win the Premier League, we're going to win the Champions League, I'm afraid that people, or some people, will raise their expectations. None of us live in cloud cuckoo land. We've all supported Newcastle United collectively for far too long. But I don't think there's any impatience amongst the panel. I think we're all very, in fact, I think this is probably, I think we're all realists. And I don't like to speak for you guys, but I think we're realists, Mitch. Go on.
We've all said clearly we're well away. We're well ahead of the projections. Absolutely well ahead of it. But however, this is where we need to take advantage of opportunities. Yeah. Because if these opportunities come quicker, you can then bump other parts of the plan forward. Seeing us as Carabao Cup winners might make the difference between being able to tack another 50 million in sponsorship on some way or not. And that then brings us forward ahead, because where we really need to catch up is the commercial millstone round our neck, which is the legacy of the Mike Ashley years. That's what's restricting we, not necessarily ambitions on the pitch or ambitions in the back room. Or ambitions in the terraces.
Also, I think we're all in agreement that we're ahead of schedule, but it may be only by a year, because by next season we should have been sitting in 5th place, challenge for Europe. So we're only a few months ahead of schedule if you look at the grand scheme of things. But we had an opportunity on Sunday, and I'm sorry, football's an emotional subject, and we've supported Newcastle all our lives, and obviously some are older than others, but it means so much to us. I mean, look at the hassle that you had to get there, Mitch, the round the houses trip I did to get there. I didn't get my ticket in my hand until about 3 hours before kick-off because the postman hadn't delivered it. So you've got all this emotional stress, but you still walk around London, wherever you turned, wherever you were in London, you could just keep hearing that. Apparently Bruno's in the middle, because that's all that you could hear everywhere and anywhere. And that gives you a sense of pride. And I think it's because we've been there. It's been so long since we've been to a cup final. We had a genuine chance to beat them. And whether people froze or they didn't follow a game plan or they didn't have the confidence or they weren't fully fit or whatever, but it all just seemed to combine at the same time. And that's the frustrating part, when you're watching players who can do better. And yes, we will get better players in the future, but
you're right.
It's all right to be upset because you just lost.
I don't think my mood was helped by having a plastic monk with his plastic flag and his plastic scarf that he was given by the the board he's probably been berating for the last 12 months, sitting in the row opposite on the plane on the way back with his fantastically wonderful local Belfast accent. Oh dear me. Yeah, it's probably a good job there wasn't a show yesterday or the day before.
You know what?
A lot worse.
We had the chairman. When the chairman was here after the Liverpool game, he had a review of where the club is. You know, he got all of the directors together. He got all of the heads of departments together. He took them all away, and he made them sit in front of him and tell them, "Where are we? Where are you? Where's your department? Where are you?" I don't think at that point, when he heard it all, he went, "I tell you what, lads, let's slow this down because it's a 5-year plan. You've gone a little bit too far. I'm going to rein you back." I think he'll have gone the other way. I think he'll have gone, "You know what, lads? Forget the 5-year plan. It's now a 2-year plan or a 12-month plan." And judging by the words of Amanda Staveley, I get the impression that words along those lines were said. We're going to go for that. We're going to go for this. We're going to go for that. We're going to win this. We're going to win that. You cannot come out and say that if you're not genuinely believing they're going to do. And it will build the expectation up of fans. And it's the winning mentality. Everyone, and we've said it for years and years and years, that what we had with Mike Ashley was we had a club that just sat there, and everybody else, he never invested, and everybody else stepped forward, and the gap got bigger and bigger and bigger. The gap can get bigger between clubs very, very quickly, especially in what we've seen in the last 12 months and what we're going to see in the next 12 months with the investment that the likes of Manchester United, Liverpool, what we've already seen with Chelsea, where Arsenal will be, where Tottenham have just come out with a massive 15-year sponsorship deal with F1 to have events on in their ground. Commercially, that's good. Newcastle will have to, and that's what the chairman's saying, we're going to have to move forward as well. All the money isn't going to come from PIF as throwing the money into the pot. The club's got to work for it, these guys, and that's why he's interrogating the guys who are working at the club in all the departments, and he's finding out, well, where are you commercially? Where are you economically? Where are you with this? What are your plans for the ground, etc.? He's wanting to know, and he's sussing them out, and he's finding out whether they're the right people for the job, and whether we're on the right track, and whether they're on the right track that he wants. And this is all part of the growth spurt that the club's going to have to go for. And I don't think Newcastle United can sit back for 5 years on a 5-year plan, to be perfectly honest, the way that the other clubs are. And that's the deal there, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Okay, we're over halfway through the show. Time for the ads, and I have redone them, so apologies for the last couple of days. A big thanks to all our sponsors this month: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or by telephoning 01768 210 102. It's a big welcome to Frui Vita Getaways. You can find them on their Facebook group, where people are directed to and encouraged to join and share to see great deals, offers, travel information, or message them for inquiries. Their email is fruivitagetaways@gmail.com. You can telephone them on 079 284 27895. They are ABTA and ATOL registered for everyone's peace of mind. Let them find your happy place. Big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you want to subscribe to the channel, like 50,000 plus have already done, hit the subscribe button underneath today's video. Hit the thumb up under the video to like, and please share to your other Facebook, Twitter, or social media accounts. If you do subscribe to the channel, you do get a free car sticker. You just need to email John at NUFC Matters to claim that today. You can also join us by putting your smartphone over the QR code, and you can get your membership pack for a one-off fee of £25. You get a cup, a pen, membership card, and a scarf. Alternatively, Click join underneath the YouTube video and you can see some cheaper packages and ways of supporting us. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. We also support the food bank on this show. To make a virtual donation, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and put some money into the matchday bucket. We've got some events coming up over the next few months. First up, an evening with Nobby Solano at the Tyneside Irish Centre, Saturday the 25th of March. Entry-only tickets available for £15. Book now at nufcmatters.com. An evening with Peter Beardsley at Leamington Labour Club on the 31st of March. Tickets are £20 and available from the venue. An evening with Nobby Solano on Friday, the 7th of April at 4 p.m, which is Good Friday. Tickets are £10 and available from Felling Cricket Club. An evening with Frank Clark and John Gibson, Thursday, the 20th of April at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £15 and you can book now at nufcmatters.com. An evening with Rob Lee, Thursday, the 1st of June at Louis Liquor Store, which is on the Groat Market in Newcastle. Tickets from Louis Liquor Store. Find them on Facebook or give them a ring. And finally, an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford in aid of the Heel and Toe charity takes place on Friday, the 2nd of June at the Grand Hotel, Gosforth. It's a 6:30 kickoff time. Dress code is smart attire. VIP tables of 10 are £1,000 or a table of 12 is £1,200. Standard tables of 10 are £700. To book, contact Natalie at natalie@heelandtoe.org.uk or visit the website www.heelandtoe.org.uk/events. Don't forget, if you want to buy some merchandise or t-shirts, then go to nufcmatters.com today. Okay, time for Ask George. Just a couple of questions, George. First one from Barry. Question for George: what's your favourite club badge? And do you think it should be updated?
Being an old-fashioned sort of guy, my favourite club badge was the coat of arms of the city that they always used to wear when they went to Wembley. It only stopped in '74 when the toffee noses at the Civic Centre wrote to the club and said, "Who gave you permission to wear our badge?" And the club wrote back and said, "Well, sod off, we'll get our own badge." And that's why the badge changed. But I always think the city coat of arms look absolutely magnificent. It's what I wear on the things I wear when I go to the match. I've got two nice shirts that came from America and they have the city coat of arms on, and that's what I would always have on. The modern badges, some of the current ones aren't bad, but I would revert always to the city coat of arms. One city, one club.
Tim says, question for George: what were your thoughts on the official at the weekend?
Apart from missing a glaring red card for me, as the Casemiro's challenge on Bruno was a straight red card if I've ever seen one, but VAR didn't pick it up either. I didn't think he had a bad game, as to be perfectly honest. But then it wasn't a hard game to referee, was it? I mean, there wasn't an over abundance of nastiness or people getting difficult or anything. It was a game played in a reasonable spirit, I thought. In fact, sometimes too easy for me. I'd rather see our kicking one or two of the Manchester players occasionally. But no, I think he didn't have a bad day, really.
Okay, good stuff. Tom Dixon says, at the weekend, I would switch formation against City, target back to his best position, and Burn back at centre-back, 4-3-3 or 5-2-3. So, would you switch the formation, George, at the weekend? Is it time to rest a couple of players and change things now that we've put
as
the
I've
cup
just
final
said,
behind us?
I just read something today about the fact that we've got 9 players that have played over 2,000 minutes, and people know better than I am are saying that they're players that should be being rested. Well, we haven't got the luxury of rest them all. But I think when you've got the sort of run that we've had, that's the problem. We've got into a run. Winning becomes a habit, but so does bloody losing. That's what bothers me. And if changing it around a bit would give us something different, and it's certainly got to be something different against Manchester City anyway. Otherwise, they'll tear her apart. So yes, I would like to see McTaggart back in if he's fully fit, and like to see some other changes as well in midfield. I want to see Anthony Gordon getting the game from the start, and things like that. So yes, I would make some changes at the weekend.
Okay, Mitch. Formations, players to rest, changing players. A lot of people in the chat tonight saying that Dan Burns getting a bit of stick. Obviously, we've had many debates on here about ASM. Wilson hasn't had an easy ride since the weekend. Some people, I think, rather unfairly saying he was disinterested. I think we all know that there's something not quite. Something not quite right.
But yeah, something not quite right. But
what would you do in the run-in, Mitch? I don't really want to focus too much on Man City, because that in itself is a different game from the rest of the games we've got to play. In general, would you change your formation? Would you look at the run-in now and say we've got to find something else? Because I'll just give you my piece on it. I just generally feel we've been found out a little bit. I think that little trio of Trippier, Almiron and Bruno, which worked so well in the first half of the season, has been sussed. They had the World Cup break to suss it, and people have now decided, we stop Bruno, we'll stop that, And I just think maybe just mixing things up. And we have got personnel that can do it. And obviously injury and suspensions, of course, will obviously kick in as well over the next few weeks, you would imagine. So, we know that Bruno might be carrying a knock, for example. So what would you do? How would you change it? What would you like to see?
My concern is how does this result affect the remainder of our season? And we've got some players who I think are key going forward. And Isaac, Gordon, McTaggart, who could all be given opportunities to stake a claim, quite rightly, who all have opportunities to slot into positions, or at the very least, if players know that they are there, for Eddie Howe to turn around to those players and say, can I see a reaction from you to this that will stop me from making these changes? It's complicated, but I think it's time to be ruthless. I think there's time for any sentiment or any heartfelt selection which is based more on heart than head, to end. And I think there's opportunities there for players to really make a difference. I think I'd also like to see Murphy given a little bit more of a chance, his little cameo. He noticeably lifted the team and noticeably lifted and added some energy and drive and actually had a goal. And that could be rewarded in other ways as well. I really don't think going forward that we should be sticking to the same ideas. We need to find something different. Is that a different formation? It could be. Though Howe seems not really one for changing when it comes to formations, and that's fine. But certainly mix the personnel up, and I think there's some key personnel in there who really could make a very big impact at the end of our season, given the opportunities, and I think they will be given the opportunities.
Okay. Our lead, what would you change moving forward? Which players would you like to see come in and be given a chance?
I believe now we'll focus more on the Premier League. I think the tension of the final will release, so players will be focused more, and I believe as we sum up the previous what you guys been talking is, I believe just the first cup. When we achieve the first cup, things will be easy. Not much to change because there is no much. We see in the final, Ricci, Murphy. We didn't have much choices, so he can't rest a lot of players. But I can't tell Almiron is exhausted. Maybe Joelinton as well. Butman also, I think he's exhausted. I think because lately I notice any more mistakes. The midfield, longest time, the midfield maybe, especially the midfield exhausted. So it's very hard to put a player in replacement. But Eddie Howe, of course, he should notice that there is exhausted. The team didn't used to have long run for the whole season. We just used to have all the previous season. We just focus on the last few games of the season to avoid relegation. But the long run need more players in the team. So maybe I just try to do some rotation. Maybe choose 2 players, because if you replace more than 2 players, this will affect the result. Manchester City is an important game, and also as Mr. George says, Jordan must be start from beginning.
Okay, Steve, what are you expecting? What would you like to see? You can imagine that he's going to have to play Isak. He's £60 million player, and he's going to have to play Gordon, isn't he? There's going to be changes. There's got to be changes.
Has to be. I mean, I if you remember on Friday night, I said that Isak should have started on Sunday.
You did.
But I also had Wilson in the team. You know what? If Wilson hasn't got the strength to get into that six-yard box, maybe he should be the number 10. Maybe Isak should be the main man. You know, maybe that's the sort of change that you'll be looking for, and they still could blend and work together. Does ASM does ASM warrant a place on his performance? Does ASM's performance rely on who he's feeding the ball to? I'm not too sure. He's not the same player as he was last season. Has Almiron been caught out and sussed out? Is he struggling because of the number of games he's played? Does Eddie look at playing a back 3 and keeping Dan Burn in? I don't think Dan Burn's performances necessarily warrant him being dropped, but maybe it's a change of formation at the back and starting to use the 3. Because when we do attack on one side, he does immediately pull in and we'll revert to a 3 anyway. Do we then look at doing something there that tightens up the midfield, takes some of the weight off Joe Linton, or brings Joe Linton a little bit? He can play a little bit further back, so Bruno can play a little bit further up behind the front man or the front 2. All of these are combinations that I'm sure Eddie Howe will be looking at. It's not my job really to turn around and go, we have to do this, we have to do that, we have to do that. But we can certainly, there's plenty of options there. A lot of it depends on who's fit, who he thinks is in form. And I think what's interesting, a lot of people coming out and saying, and Wilson himself said, if he was 80%, he would tell the manager that he shouldn't be in the team. But if he's more than 80%, he feels as though he should be. I think that was a statement that was used. Well, with the technology that we have now, the coaches and the analysts, the data analysts, and Eddie Howe himself know exactly what the players are putting in. They know exactly how strong they are in the second part of a game, the first part of the game, the middle section of a game. They know whose form's dipped. They know who's not putting it in from the start. All the data's there. It's how you extrapolate all that data, and then you look at your opposition, and maybe instead of just throwing the same 11 in time and time and time again, now's the time to start looking at who you're playing and looking at how you can exploit some of the opposition's style of play. Because if we have been sussed out, it's pointless continually repeating the same old thing. I think it's time for just a quick review and a quick revised analysis of where we are and who is up for the last 15 games or whatever it is of the season, and what the ambition is. There's still plenty of opportunity to get into the top 4. All we've got to do is start to look at the form that we've had previous to Christmas and try and analyze what did we do, what are we doing wrong, and how do we put that right? What's changed, and what do we need to restart and re-energize? It's going to be an exciting last part of the season, and the one thing you can guarantee, we've always said, the fans are going to be up for it. It's whether or not those players after Sunday can now see, there's plenty still to be playing for. It might not be a cup competition, but there's fourth place, there's Champions League, and where the club can be heading. European football. I prefer Champions League because you know that you're going to get a big investment. I don't think you'll get necessarily a big investment if you got into the Europa League or into the conference or anything like that. I mean, the club should now, in their reset, should be saying, guys, we're targeting Champions League, we're targeting top 4. We've still got to play X, Y, and Z. We're going to take points off them, and that's where we should go.
Okay, interesting point. Kev, what about you, mate?
I think if he sticks to a 4-3-3, he's got to go back to the basics that we've done well, and that was movement of the ball in the final third. That's been lacking. I've always banged on the drum of the entry ball from playing through the thirds, what we call, I guess I'll be the resident coach on here and how to break it down if I can. Entry ball into midfield, breaking lines that way. Can you have movement within the middle third? Can you get balls into a Wilson or somebody like that to bring players in with third man runs? Things like that. But again, like the lads have said, when we go down the right-hand side, we naturally go to a 3. Then they'll expose our left side. But if we go to a 3, like I said, Monday night and play like a offset, it's not a 5, it's a 4. What was it again? A 3-4-1-2 essentially.
Yeah.
And you can have like I said, Trippier target on the left, and you've got that defensive cover. Yes, it'll make a 5 when we don't have the ball, which essentially what happens anyway with Miggy outside of Maxi. It doesn't really happen, but it's more of that type of system when we don't have the ball. But when we do play 4-3-3, we'll get very exposed. As of now, like I said, against Liverpool, they went long, playing the low block, go long, play on the counter-attack a lot more. Man United done pretty much exactly the same when they went 2-0 up, and they go long and they get exposed based on that. We've got a lot of pace defensively. So, and if you've got high flyers up the top end of the pitch, then that the depth of the back 4, back whatever it is, to the midfield 3, that's going to create a lot more space for their creative players to expose us that way. Because if you get Bruno pushing high, if you get Longstaff pushing high, then there's about a 30, 40 yard bit of space for them to play into. So I would change it. I would just, again, I'll put the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit. I would like to take a risk. I would like to see other players playing not in a dissimilar position, but something where they'll be very effective. And like a Mac Target, he's good defensively. He can get forward a little bit. Again, play Shaw, Botman, and Byrne at the back. You've got 3 big lads there. And if you can defend across from wide areas, which Trippier can do to a certain extent, and then target to a certain degree, then we've got to, you're halfway there. And then you've got five defensive players, play Bruno, Joe Linton, or / Longstaff with Gordon in front, and them 2 players Bruno and Joe Linton can break the play up. Gordon can then advance forward as an attacking player. Isaac can play up alongside Wilson, maybe Miggy or ASM. It depends, it just depends what he sees, what Man City bring, because I don't think they've got a lot of pace at the back. So if you run in channels, play to what Man City offer and what their analysis is, and I totally agree with Steve. I mean, that analytical data in the game is no end. I mean, I've seen it at U10 level over here where we're doing video analysis of 10-year-olds. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So everybody knows you've got where they've been, how far they've ran, blah, blah, blah. So I would just, again, why not? Why can't we just do something different? Because again, I totally agree we're being found out. In the 4-3-3, we know how we're going to set up to a certain extent, particular players with injury or whatever, but it's going to be pretty much the same. So if we go, like I said, a 3-4-1-2 or some variation of that, it's not a 3, it's not a 5 at the back, it's not negative, it's still playing on the front foot. You've just got players where we can isolate the central midfield and break play up quickly and advance the ball forward, winning the ball back as quickly as we possibly can with a high press with, 4 or 5 players like we have done, because that was my bigger concern when Miggy was running, doing doggies halfway across Wembley pitch when Callum Wilson should have been doing it. Yeah. And then you lose your shape, and then they'll just ping it out wide left, and Luke Shaw you could build full housing estate in the place where he could have the space he had, you know, but then they got out. So again, we lost the shape. And again, and I said on last week's show that do you press with your heart or your head? And I think Steve Hasty, you said, agree with you again. It's that it was all heart. Yeah, you got to play with your heart. Absolutely, you got to have desire. You've got to have all of that. But again, it's all mental. Do you go as a team? You do it all together. If one goes, we'll all go. And if one goes and doing all the doggies, everybody sits in. And that didn't happen. We're getting exposed very convenient. It's too easy for teams. That was my constant comment over this past weekend. That was too easy. It's too easy to get out. So again, if you have a 5 across the middle, essentially, then it'll not be easy to get out. And plus, you got 2 up top, and plus it'll occupy their 2 centre backs. Or if they play a 3, then you play a 3v2. So there's a lot of caveats. There's a lot of different ways you could go and do about it. Again, I wish I was getting his salary, because I would love to have a chat with him to try and figure it all out. If he's got a job going, I'll have one as well, like I said, Monday. Or the analytical role, because the lads went to Man City. I could quite happily do that. But at the same time, I'll give it a go. I'll just change it. Why not? There's nothing really we can lose from this point. We're safe in the Premier League. Push for the top 5, 4, whatever it is, and give the other teams that we're playing another thought process of how we're going to play. Yeah. Because we can quite easily go back to a 4-3-3. We could quite in the middle of a game, we could drop in Kieran Trippier, we could play Matt Talk, we can manipulate that as well. We can go to multiple different formations. It just depends on how we start the game. Yeah. So yeah, roll the dice. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, give it a go. All right, Stu.
Well, before I start, I just want to say that I think Eddie Howe's been a breath of fresh air to us, and I think he deserves all our backing, and 100% deserves our backing. He's been probably the best manager we've had. I would say he's already done as much as what Bobby Robson did, and then people might disagree with that, but Bobby Robson inherited a much better squad than what Eddie Howe's done, and I think the way he's transformed the team, but not just the team, the supporters, the belief, everything that he's done. He's been the catalyst for it all. He's been our most important signing that the club's made. But saying that, it's very easy to praise someone, but you've also got to be not critical, but you're allowed an opinion that's not always kissing the backside either. I think we all knew that he would play, which team he would play, and which formation he would play. And if Willock was fully fit, it would have been the team that played in the semis, it would have been the team that played in the quarterfinals, and the ASM would have been on the bench, because he is loyal, and it can be good for team spirit, etc., but sometimes you could be flogging a dead horse with some of these players. But what I liked about his interview after the game was it seemed to he was really angry, but he controlled himself. He was composed when he was saying it, but he was really angry. He said, "I did not have a minute to waste when I took Sean Longstaff off." That tells you he felt that he wasn't doing the job that was asked of him. And yes, he did make some substitutions, but when I agree with the substitutions that were made, sorry, I don't agree with them made, but I can understand why they were made. It was to give them a taste of Wembley, but for all we wanted was one goal. Just a goal worth to celebrate, and a goal to say, right. And as Steve Hasty said, if we got one in the 87th minute, we had all the pressure. It was all flattery to deceive, wasn't it? Man United was sitting there, okay, play in front of us. But as soon as you got behind us, it was 2 or 3 against 5, 6, 7 in the box. So I'm going to say something in defence of Callum Wilson. Although we are playing with inverted wingers, what is wrong with swapping them over? Why didn't they swap Miggy and ASM over and actually go down the proper wing instead of constantly cutting in? Because all that does is it reduces the size of the pitch. It reduces the space that the forwards have to play with. It makes it even more difficult. And when the ASM's had his best games for us, he's hit the byline. And he is capable. The chance he had, he hit the byline. Remember when he had the shot, he hit the byline, and that's what needs to be done. But for me, for Callum Wilson, I think he appears off from the outside looking in. It looks like he's lost some strength. And if you lose his strength, then that affects his pace, and that affects his control, it affects his confidence and his belief. I think he needs to be dropped. And if we're going to push for the rest of the season, why pay 40 million for Gordon and pay 60 million for Isaac and not play them? Get them left wing, right wing. Left wing and centre. Do you know who I'd play on the right wing? St. Maximin. I would put him there and say, right, now you can cut inside if you want, but you're strong on your right foot. Get down that wing and get the ball into the box. And then have that and the centre midfielder running onto it. Joe Willock, if that's who's going to be playing in there. It's not the end of the world. We're having an amazing season, the best we've had in ages. But I am still a bit despondent about it was like a meek surrender. We accepted after about 60 minutes that we weren't going to score. And that was it. And it was just like, it seemed to be just getting passed around. So let's just put it to bed. Hopefully we get there sooner than the next 24 years, because I think most of us won't be here to watch that in 24 years' time.
Yeah.
So I think the way me and Mitch will go, we might not be near in 24 days' time. It's a good job we had a rest, I think. It's fantastic that we were there. It really was. But it's
at least we didn't need to make a trip to Selfridges in an emergency.
No, we didn't. The only trip we did was at 7 o'clock in the morning to get McDonald's. That was the only thing we
you
ever
brought
did.
your brown trousers, Dominic. That was a famous line in Have a Dirty Millwall. We'll leave it there. And it wasn't one of the lads on the panel before anybody panicked. Son of THC it has been mentioning in the chat about the Bloomberg article. So what we'll do, I presume most of us won't have read it.
That was like years ago, months ago we said that.
Yeah, I don't know whether there's some kind of reconfiguration of it, whether it's been redone, but yeah, go on, Stu. You're on the ball with it. So just give us your views on it. It's something to do with our chairman admitting that PIF is owned by the state. I mean, is that really a major story? I think it is something that came up.
It wasn't even a major story for us. What it was that the state would have no say in how they ran Newcastle. It was PIF as an independent company running Newcastle, and it wasn't going to be state owned. That's different to PIF being part of the state. But that's something that I remember listening to Steve Hasty a couple of months ago, and the Three Amigos talking about it. About it being a court case in America, so it's not new news, and we've discussed it internally between ourselves as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, son of THC, do us a favour, get the link, send us the link on social media, or stick it in the chat on Friday night, 5 till 7, if you're around for the Three Amigos. We'll have a look at it whilst we're on air, and if it's something new, we will certainly debate it. Mank Man, good to see you in the chat. Honestly, there are some good fans from other clubs who get on here. I've seen Rich on from Everton as well, so big shout out to you guys. Thanks very much. And over 400 watching tonight, so as we always say, we never do take it for granted. Thanks to the mods in the chat as well for keeping it clean and keeping an eye, and congratulations to Stevie Wonder on getting the freedom of the city. I find that very superstitious. Anyway, lads, good night, God bless, and I'm back 6 o'clock tomorrow night with Super Matt and Gibbo. Until then, take care. See you, lads.
Good night, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, lads.